Hello. So due to the way that I have titled this video, I need to start with a little disclaimer because I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea about me or my opinions. I would like to start my disclaimer by saying that I think Korea is a beautiful country with a beautiful culture. It has so much to offer. I love my life here right now. I am very happy and content with my life. Spending my last 5 years here has taught me so much about me, about the world, about Korea, Korean culture, and it has shaped my personality so much. I've basically spent my defining years in Korea. From 18 to 23, everything I know about being an adult, I've learned here. I had to deal with things here. At this point, I would say it's basically my second home. I feel really comfortable here. And when I'm here, I don't feel like it's a foreign country experience anymore. I've studied here. Now I work here. So basically, I did a part of my growing up here, blah, blah, blah. This is just to say that I do not wish to shit on anybody's country, anybody's culture. I have been a part of it for many years and I respect it so much. Then why does this video exist? It exists to talk about my experiences, what I wish I had known before I moved here, because I feel like Korea is one of those countries that get romanticized more than it should at times, but I do feel like it is also important to bring up these points. Also, feel free to take everything with a grain of salt because these are just my experiences. I know a lot of foreigners who were really happy to live here, who would like to come here again. Although I am very happy here, now at the age of 23, I am realizing that I would be much happier in a different context, and I am realizing that it is not for me anymore. It's not to the point where I'm like, oh my god, I hate everything, I hate this country, I wish I never came here. It's more like, now that I know what I know, maybe I could have invested somewhere else. But at the same time, as I've explained in a previous Q&A, I know that this was the best that I could have done. So I'm also at peace knowing that I still probably made the best decisions that I could for myself. I already talked too much, but here's a little about me since it's important for the video. I'm Eylül, I'm 23, studied in Korea for university. I studied global business administration, graduated, got my first job here, quit that, now I have another corporate job here. I've been learning Korean for almost 9 years and I've been living in Korea for almost 5 years. So just saying, keep those in mind before you think I'm another outsider making shallow observations. I want to start by talking about my experience in the university a little bit. I get DMs every day about studying in Korea. There are a lot of you guys who would like to study here, but I would just like to say that I am not happy with the education that I have gotten here. I am not happy with the quality of it. I'm not happy with how it was structured, and I am not happy with what I have gotten out of it, basically. So in case you don't know, I studied here in one of the best universities of this country with a fully funded scholarship. They even paid for my living expenses, dorms were covered, I was comfortable. Although I am grateful for that. Also, did I mention that I graduated with honors? I always mention it because I think I don't deserve it. I did not study. I was just shitting on classes for 4 years. My roommates know. I was on YouTube, Netflix, TikTok 24/7. I started my TikTok, Instagram accounts on my senior year and I was fully focused on that. This is to tell you that I did well in school. I was in the top 5% and I still think it was shit. It was a shit experience, I think. First of all, I want to talk about the quality of the classes. Quality of the classes suffered, I think, because most of the professors were not really proficient in English. Also, even if they were proficient in English, they had to simplify the classes a lot for Korean students to be able to catch up with it. And I do understand the need, but this is my observation. I feel like the quality of the classes suffered so much just from this language barrier. Some classes were really hard to focus on, or it was like just really hard to understand because of the way that they were speaking English in the class. I completely relied on textbooks and the notes that my seniors have given me, which would be my second point. You really did not actually have to learn anything because the classes, they were really much like lectures, and what most of my professors considered lectures were just reading the textbook. Dude, I can read the textbook myself, you don't need to show up. And I know it's a problem back home in Turkey. A lot of my friends complain about that in their universities, but my university, in the world rankings, at least when I got it was in the top 100. And if this is the type of education they provide, it really makes me question things. I've had some great professors, some great classes, but I have to say 95% of the time, I was just not happy with the lectures. I did not feel like I was learning anything important. I could have read the textbook myself. And one other problem I have with that is the classes were so focused on the textbook and the theory that there was barely any debate. I think it's just the way Korean education system is. There's just not a lot of discussion. It's just whatever the professor says. And the few times where the professors actually wanted us to talk, to express our opinions, no one would. They were just afraid that they would say the wrong thing when there is not a wrong thing. It is just a discussion. It is just your opinion. Most of the time, it would be either the exchange students, the foreigners, or the overseas Koreans that would try to speak up, disagree, say something different in the class. Again, I'm not blaming Koreans. I'm just saying that this is the way that their education system has shaped them. And yet again, this is something that makes the quality of the classes suffer. Also, as a foreign student, I felt really lonely at times. I understand it is not 100% their fault because the first 2 years were COVID years and this and that. But after that, I really expected them to make an effort for the international students. At all times, I felt like we were two different groups, internationals and Koreans. It was really easy to be friends with other internationals. They were friendly, but I just expected more from our school. I feel like they could have organized things to make it easier for us to meet. We're of course from very different backgrounds, very different cultures, and on top of that, if you absolutely make no efforts as to make us a little bit more united, as to make us meet, then it's only gonna make the situation worse. When I first came to this university, people that I have met in my last years might not believe me, but I was super warm. I was super open to people. I just wanted to meet people. I just wanted to make friends, and the atmosphere in our university just made me want to not talk to anyone at all, like even internationals at some point, because most of them were exchange students and they were gonna go anyway, so I was just like, why bother? Also, a lot of the announcements, events, when they had events, anything you might want to join, clubs, they're all in Korean, and I was fluent in Korean before I came to Korea, so that was never a problem for me, but I saw that it was a problem for many of my peers, many of my friends. A lot of my international friends, they really wanted to join these things. Either they just completely missed the announcement because it was fully in Korean, or the papers they have to write to join these things, motivational letters, they were supposed to be all in Korean, so they just could not join. I think that is very disrespectful because most of these universities use international students to get higher rankings on these world rankings like QS, TH. They use their international student count, they invite these students to their universities and do absolutely nothing for them. They just completely ignore our existence. And whenever I would talk about this with someone in our office, they would be like, yeah, we're sorry. Great, I'm glad you're sorry about it. What does it change then? The other thing I want to mention about my university is that there was a very clear lack of structure. I was feeling so lost when I had to apply for classes, kind of create a roadmap for myself. What do I want to do? What classes do I want to take? I never knew which one that I really had to take and which ones that I could choose to leave out, which one would be good for my career. No one really told me anything about it, and I'm not sure if Korean students have it any different. I was just randomly applying for classes. Also, the lack of structure is greater for international students because as everyone else, you need to complete a certain amount of credit. For our school, you needed to complete those credits from different categories, but sometimes in those different categories, there simply would not be enough classes in English. So most of my international friends, as opposed to my Korean friends, had a very small pool of classes that they could choose from, and those classes would fill up so quickly. So clearly when they were designing this credit, sectioning the credit system, whatever, they did not think of international students. You just can't expect everyone to be able to take a class fully in Korean and to compete with Koreans in that class because we were graded on a curve. So naturally, most of my friends who could not take Korean classes because their Korean was good, but listening to a lecture completely in Korean is just something else. It's another level. You just can't expect everyone to do that, especially if you're claiming to be so international and accommodating, which I did not think my university was. And especially in the credit system, there was a section that was called like global credits, just full of very simple English classes, career English, business English, global Englishes. Because of the way that the system was designed, I had to take every single class from that category. One class I was really focused on, marketing, research, serious stuff that I need for my career. And the next hour I would be in another building and they would like, so this is how we write an English paragraph. I did not have the liberty to not take that class. I was 18, I had been speaking English for the past decade. I knew how to write a paragraph. I had to take a lot of like super basic English classes like that. If I had paid for my university experience, I think I would be really mad. And the last thing that I want to mention is that it's actually something I'm really angry about. Lack of internship opportunities. Not the lack of it, it's just non-existent. All of my friends that have studied in Europe, America, Australia, back home, Turkey, during their third, fourth year, they have gotten really good internships. Even if they were not really good, they landed internships. They could have done that. But in Korea, first of all, it's basically illegal because they consider an internship as something very different in Korea. Back home, an intern would be someone who shows up like twice or like 3 times a week, limited hours. In Korea, what they consider an intern is someone that shows up Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, but gets paid less. So as an international student with your visa, you just can't do it. And as to how Koreans do these internships, they take a semester off, they take a year off, they complete their internships, and then they continue their semesters to get their diploma. But again, as an international student, you can't legally do that. You can't just take a semester off, at least without an explanation. I don't know in the cases of death or something serious, I don't know, but I just know that I was not allowed to take a semester off to do an internship. This is outrageous to me because right off the bat, it is something that makes you start your career, start life a little bit later than everyone else. I felt like I had a pretty good CV. I speak a lot of languages. I did a lot of activities, projects, whatever. I did not land a single internship when I was studying because I just did not have a valid visa. I feel like I could go on about my university life for another hour, but we have other things to talk about, okay? Work life. The second reason why I kind of regret coming to Korea is because of the work life and the work culture here. Basically have witnessed how things work in 3 different Korean companies. I am very grateful to have found the company that I'm working in right now because I really feel like among all these Korean companies in the industry that I want to work in, it is just one of the best places. But objectively speaking, the benefits, how the company works in general, not only in our team, the conditions that you have to work under, I would rather not to. For example, one thing that shocked most of my viewers in my last video and my TikToks was the fact that we don't have sick days. When you're sick, you have to use your own personal vacation days, which you have a whopping 11 of. And if I don't have any left, too bad. I have to show up to work, which I did. I had COVID and I showed up to work, which is how I got COVID in the first place. Someone in the office had it. They still had to show up to work. So everyone in the office had COVID. It is pretty much like this in most companies that I know in Korea. I think it is inhuman. I think this is wild. I think this is not acceptable. If you're from the West, I don't know what you consider Turkey, but it's relatively West when you compare it to here. You might think that Koreans, Japanese people, they work really hard. They work so hard. They have such a work ethic, and that's why these countries are very developed. I found that what they consider hardworking is not considered working hard in most places of the world. So what Korean people want actually is not productivity. It's not you actually getting a lot of work done. What they want to see is that you sitting on your desk. That's what makes them happy. Looking very focused on the actually non-existent work. That's when they're happy. Just kind of related to their overtime culture. Why do they have so much overtime? Because sometimes the bosses come around like 4 or 5 p.m., give you a new task, and they're like, finish it by today. Either that or they just do things so ineffectively to the point that they have to do overtime. I'm not saying that they're lazy or slacking off. I mostly blame the system the companies have. I have seen the system in 3 companies at this point, and they were all just so ineffective. No direct communication. They can do it like twice as faster had they just used a different system or did not have so many, what are they called in English? Like formalities. You know, if there were not so many formalities, different system, different documents, could have done it so much faster. When the situation is like that, on top of Koreans having a very high context culture, which means if you are doing something wrong, if they're not happy with you, they are not directly gonna tell you. You just have to rely on a lot of cues. You just feel like you can't get up and leave at 6 p.m. You feel like you have to prove your bosses, you have to prove your team that you're working just as hard as them by staying at your desk, although you finish doing everything. In my previous company, I know that people would regularly leave around like 8 or 9. And I also know for a fact that they would get less done during those hours. They would just like talk to each other, but the bosses were happy. Why? Because to them, those are hardworking employees. Also, I really cannot stand this fake respect anymore. I feel like this is true for other corporates around the world too, but there's this like company politics, if you know what I mean. Like you have to act a certain way, be nice to certain other employees or your higher ups or the higher ups of the higher ups. But I just feel like it is elevated to another level due to their understanding of respect. I do not know how to elaborate on that, but I just know that there were a lot of times where I felt uncomfortable because I had to show this fake respect to the people that I didn't even know. And in my communications with them, I had to be like 50 times more careful than I would have because I was just so afraid to ruin the reputation of our team. I don't know how much of this makes sense, but it is very sensitive. One thing that shocked my friends when we're walking around the company, whenever you like lock eyes with someone, you have to bow to everyone whenever you see them. I think it's especially awkward when you have to do that in the bathroom. Like I'm just going there to pee. If there's a Korean employee, I do that first and then walk. They made us do that in all of the companies that I have worked at. Yeah, I understand it's to show respect in their culture, but maybe could I get a break in the bathroom? I don't know. Sorry, I talked so much that I needed tea. But the last thing I want to mention about the work life in Korea is that I saw a similar pattern to my university life where there were just no discussion. We would get the information from the higher ups and then we were just expected to follow. And I was quick to learn that when they were asking for my opinion, they were not really asking for my opinion, they just wanted me to agree with them. No one really is interested in your opinion. They don't need or want you to have a different one. You just need to shake your head, bow, and say, 네, 알겠습니다. It is actually something that we joke about with internationals a lot. My friends just come up to me and ask, oh, how many times did you say 네, 알겠습니다 today? But 알겠습니다 did nothing. I'm always fascinated by people with different experiences, where they're coming from and how they think differently, what makes them think differently. But I just don't get enough of that in Korea. In their work culture, it is just not even on the table. You are not to suggest anything. You are not to say that things can be done differently or that you have a different opinion. And I just hate that. Okay, our next and last section for this video, I want to talk a little bit about the social life in Korea, because in my previous Q&A I said the social life in Korea is shit very directly when I was asked, so I feel like I need to elaborate on that a little bit. The first thing most internationals notice about the social life in Korea is that it's a little bit shallow. I'm just gonna say it's a little bit shallow. I feel like most people are friends with each other because it is convenient. I feel like it is the same way in their dating life as well. Koreans get together, start relationships, and break up so much faster than you would think, because most of the time they don't need to be in love, they just need to show the society that they are dateable and that they are dating this respectable other person, because that's why society tells them to do, just like how society tells them to follow trends. Another thing that I really don't like about here, there's this over consumerism, next trend, and yeah, other countries have trends too, but I just wish I could have shown everyone how crazy it is here. Like when something is trending, you see it everywhere, everyone has it, and everyone has to have it to be a part of the society, to not be an outsider. They even have terms for this. 인사 아싸. Like 아싸 is someone who can't really catch up to these new things, the new thing that kids are on. And insa is like a person who knows all the cool places to go, cool things to do, cool things to wear. And this is so tiring and stressful. It has helped my confidence in a lot of the ways which I will be talking in another video. For me, it has the exact opposite effect. It made me subject myself to different standards. I'm gonna get to that some other time. But the way that society is constantly trying to catch this new thing, find new things to obsess about, I find it very tiring. Wait, this was not a very organized thought. I started by how I think the society is a little bit shallow. Sorry, back to that. Oftentimes with the Koreans that I have met, I know some of my friends have different experiences, but Koreans like to socialize and talk about different things. Again, not saying that they're wrong and I'm right, we're just different. Most of the Koreans that I have met like to talk about cafes that they want to go to, the bags that they want to buy, the new movies, the new things that are coming out. And when I have a person in front of me, I can talk about those things too, but what I really want to talk about is like, how's life going? How are you doing? Is everything all right with you? I want to know about you and not your capitalistic experiences. I want to bond with people on an emotional level. I have some Korean friends that I really love. So obviously I have that connection with some people, and I'm not saying everyone is like this, but in my experience in the past 5 years, 85-90% of the people that I have met here was like this. Like during first dates, Koreans would ask you things like, what does your parents do? Which company do you work at? Which school do you go to? Because first they want to get an idea of the product. The same applies to friendships. I just noticed that it was not really for me. And other than that, what I constantly feel here is a lack of empathy. Korea markets itself as very multicultural, international, very welcoming. It really is not. They have so little empathy for you and what you might have been going through that everything at one point becomes a problem. For example, again, at work, for example, I had to go to the immigration office to deal with something, and the amount of time that my company gives to its foreign workers is 3 hours. You have 3 hours to deal with your visa stuff to be able to keep working there and come back into the office. Just the transportation itself to the immigration office from our office takes 3 hours. Like if you spent 0 seconds there, if you just went there, directly came back, it would be 3 hours. So there is no way that you're getting it done in 3 hours. There's just no way. But obviously the person who put this rule in the first place never thought about it, never thought about how doable, because it's not their problem. They are a Korean person who never had to deal with Korean immigration officers, so they're just not gonna help you with that. They're not gonna cater to your needs because it is not their problem. And you can't bring up or complain about this because when you try to, they say that it has always been like that, which is, I don't know, which is the answer you get most of the time. Anyways, I realized that in this type of a society, I felt like I was becoming a more watered down version of myself. I was not able to express myself as much as I would like to. And that is why actually I noticed that I just did not want to speak Korean. This is so sad because I've spent my years learning it and I've enjoyed it so much. But in the past few years, if I had the chance, I always chose to speak another language. I just did not want to communicate in Korean because when I was speaking Korean, I was just not myself anymore. I was just saying what I should say instead of what I want to say. All in all, the social life here has also not met my expectations. As I've said in my previous video, I need, at the ripe age of 23, I feel like I need a diverse environment. An environment that would be more welcoming to differences and in an environment where I wouldn't feel so weird. I realize that I have been feeling like the odd one out for a while now and I just don't like it. I don't like it. It is just not for me. And also I really want to learn about people from different parts of the world. I want to learn about their experiences. I want to hear their experiences without them having to filter themselves out so much. I just feel like this context, this culture makes it a little bit hard. That is just what I think. Okay, so to finish off, I want to say that every country has its pros and cons. It just so happened that right now, for what I'm looking for, I have decided that is not for me anymore. The cute cafes, convenience stores, food, that was all very impressive the first 2 years, but I just feel like the downsides are a little bit heavier at this moment. As I said, I will probably be here for the next year, and I am still very happy, but I also do know that it is important to talk about these things, to not create this false perception of Korea, to not idealize or romanticize anything. Facts must be spoken, kids. It is okay to move on from things. I just think that I have simply learned that everything I could have learned here, and it is time for me to move on. Feel free to keep watching my journey here as I'm trying to stay mentally stable, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below because I always reply. See you on the next one. Good day.